So Archit, let's get started. Officially welcome and thank you for being part of the webinar and also giving an opportunity for users on Grip to be part of your equity story. We use this as a forum for our users to understand more about the business and hear directly from the founders. There's no way to replace that direct conversation and that direct input that they have about your journey. Maybe to kick it off, would love to hear about your background. You're not a doctor by education, while you obviously had experience investing in medical sciences. But would love to understand how that journey led to the formation of Glamyo, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the business.
Sure. Thanks, Nikhil, Vivek, and Raman from Grip for having me over. I'm definitely excited to have you guys as part of our one of our investors. In terms of my background, right? So before starting this venture, I spent almost 12 years on the private equity side, investing in multiple sectors, right? So I started my career in 2000s. Basically, I passed out from Side Business School, which is part of Oxford University in 2006, and joined Deutsche Bank in London. And I was there till 2009. So there I was largely focused on investing in real estate sectors. But I wanted to move back to Delhi and actually understand businesses, right? How to build large businesses in India, right? And since I came from a business family, I was always keen to see how businesses work at large scale, right? And I ended up joining a fund called Milestone Really here. That was a healthcare education fund, $100 billion fund. And incidentally, my co-founder, Dr. Preet, so he's a doctor actually, and that's where all the medical expertise come from. So me and him, we worked there together, and we also did a couple of deals together. One of them was SCG Global, which is India's or Southeast Asia's largest oncology chain. It's a listed company. And over there, I picked up a lot of details on the healthcare space. What are the gaps in the industry? And that's how I know my co-founder also for last 10 plus years. And I think in 2011, I joined another fund called Rabo Equity, which was a food and agri-focused fund. So there also, it was a $120 million fund, invested into almost 5-6 different companies in the food and agri domain. But I think over the years, it was very clear that I eventually want to start my own business. And in 2019, in mid 2019, me and Preet kind of kept meeting more frequently, and we realized that we really want to use our expertise, what we have learned in the private equity so far, to actually create a large enterprise, create something large, right? And that's how I think we started evaluating a few ideas. And when we were looking at certain ideas what to do next, I think we were very clear on a couple of things. So one, we wanted to create a company which is inherently profitable, wherein the unit economics are strong, right? Because we came from a private equity background and not from a VC background. So we were always, in our private equity journey, we have seen that companies usually after 1 or 2 checks, they don't take more checks to sustain the business, right? So they're not dependent upon the next check. So I think that is one interest. That's why the niche that we picked up in Glamyo Health, and we'll come to it later on. We found it a interest. Inherently strong profitability is there in the business. Unit economics are strong. Markets are large. It's almost an $80 billion market, right? So I think those were some of the things that excited us about the market. And I think between Preet and me, we had a lot of complementary skills. He had a lot of medical background. We have worked together. I came from a finance and investing background. So I think we had a lot of complementary skills, and that's how I think we launched the business in Jan 2020. We raised a seed round of less than $500,000 at that time. And today, in October last year, we closed our Series A. And today, we are fortunate that, we are in 20 plus cities, or more than 20 cities, actually closer, like almost in 25 cities. We have a network of almost 500 hospitals, 300 plus doctors. We get almost 30,000 patient inquiries every month. And we do close to 1,200 surgeries every month out of that 30,000.
Wow. Now, before we get into understanding the business, and I want to make sure that people also understand what elective surgeries are. To be honest, we all know what surgeries, but we don't know it's called elective surgery, or not commonly called elective surgery. But the fact that one of you comes from a business background, one of you comes from a from medical sciences background. Both of you have worked together in evaluating business. I think it's a very interesting combination, and would love to hear your investor lens on it towards the end of this call towards your own business. Right, we'll get to that, but maybe we've given our users a preview of what Glamyo Health is doing. There's a little bit of a memo on our website. Would
Right.
love to talk about what the business is, and if you can also explain what elective surgery means and differentiate it from what some of us will think about as normal place surgeries.
Correct. So generally, the way we define electives electives are something which are non-critical in nature. So in the hospitalization space, so hospitalization space in India is a $80 billion market, right? And there are three large sub-segments of it. One is critical care, one is elective, and another one is a medical management. So critical care takes care of your all your heart-related ailments, bypass surgeries, and all. It takes care of the liver transplants, kidney transplants, and it also takes care of the oncology-related surgeries, right? Where matter of life and death is involved. These are generally very long stays. The bills are very large, and generally the outcomes are not necessarily positive, right, for the patient. So that is one segment which is maybe slightly morbid in nature. Then there is another segment which is the medical management, wherein let's say you get a fever or a typhoid or a dengue or a malaria, and you go and get admitted in a hospital. There is no invasive or surgical procedure happens, but you are in hospital for 4-5 days. You recover. There is care management given to you. So that is one segment. So electives are actually more like non-critical surgeries. There is definitely surgical invasive procedures, but it is non-critical in nature. Mostly, these are half an hour to 1 hour of OT time. So you go into OT half an hour, 1 hour, and you're out of the OT, and you stay in the hospital for maximum 24 hours. Right. So over there, I think the good things about these procedures were that, as I told you, right, one and why we chose this segment was because one, it was as I said, non-critical, so we were always sure of the outcome, right? I mean, there is no life and death matter involved for the patient, right? Mostly these are happy outcomes, right? I mean, because if you are having pile surgery, you have pain, but after the surgery is done, the pain is relieved. If you are doing a LASIK surgery, like which I did from our platform just yesterday only, so after the surgery, your specs are removed, and you can free to work, without the specs, right? People go for cosmetic surgeries wherein they like something to be improved about their looks. They do that, whether it is kidney stone, gallstone, hernia, cosmetic surgeries, dental implants, dental aligners. So these are mostly non-critical, one-day stay, non-eventful, and fast recovery rates and good and happy outcomes. So that's how we define elective surgeries. Good thing is that this is a very large market. There are almost 25 lakh surgeries happen every month on the elective side in India alone. So 3 crore surgeries annually in India, right? And 25 lakhs every month all over India.
And I'm assuming this is growing very fast, right? Because as people have more disposable income, want to live certain kind of lifestyles, have the ability to improve the quality of lifestyle, this must be something that a lot of people are now getting informed about and choosing to do.
No, you're absolutely right. I think this is one segment which is growing very fast. And today, see, one is, so in our case, demand is generated in two ways. One is where patient is having a pain or a discomfort, which is could be hernia or a gallstone or a kidney stone or a pile surgery. But there are areas where they want something improved about how they look, right? Which is possibly LASIK surgeries, possibly cosmetic surgeries, possibly dental aligners and surgeries, right? Now that is something which is actually fueled a lot by the growth in the income, and also with better knowledge, better social media penetration, more consumption of online media. Because if I give you an example, today our elective surgery as a market is close to 22 billion dollars market. Out of the $80 billion hospitalization market, electives is $20 billion, which is projected to go to $30 billion in the next couple of years. Out of this, cosmetic surgeries today is $1 billion, and in China, just cosmetic surgery alone is $70 billion. Just cosmetics. So imagine, I mean, and assuming that we are 10 years behind China or 15 years behind China, imagine what scale this just one segment or the overall electives can take in the next 10 to 15 years. So I think that is really the market that we are going after. So one is that is a market is large, is growing fast. It will become a very large market, and also there is a gap in the market because a lot of the large hospitals, they do not focus that much on the electives. So if you go to Apollo, Max, and Fortis, right? So the primary focus is always on the critical care, and that is what they are known for. And in that setting, providing a elective surgery sometimes is not the best because there is an angle of wellness. People want a better patient experience. They want a concierge, which we are able to provide. So I think that's where the market will evolve in the future.
Understood. And I know that you provide a complete managed solution or service to users. But before we dive into that, could you just explain as a platform, how does Glamyo connect doctors, hospitals with patients, and how does that discovery process get enabled? What is Glamyo's business model?
Sure. So, Nikhil, one fundamental difference I would like to bring here for the users is, right, so there are two types of models which are prevalent in the asset light domain. So one is lead gen and one is full stack. In lead gen, obviously you get a lead and you pass on the lead to a service provider, and the service provider fulfills the lead and you make a small cut out of it.
Maybe like what we know Practo for.
What Practo is doing, and there are maybe few small players which do like that. In our case, actually, we are actually full stack, which means whenever the patient comes, we are responsible not only for finding the right hospital and doctor, but the entire surgical experience is governed by us, right? So we govern it to the level where who is the doctor, who is the hospital, what time the OT starts, what consumables go in the surgery, what is the final bill for that surgery, and what time the discharge happens, and when the follow-ups will happen. Everything is controlled by us or governed by us or as per our medical protocol. So there are two reasons why we decided to go full stack, right? Because in full stack, it allows us to have a better patient experience. Today, the major challenge is if you go into a hospital, unfortunately, there is no control on the overall pricing or the final bill. Hospital may promise you 70,000, and if the final bill comes at 1 lakh rupees, there is very limited control or knowledge that the patient has to argue with it why it was 1 lakh and not 70,000, and why should I pay the extra thing. People are assumed that you have to pay something extra, right? Then what time your admission happens, what time the discharge happens. Hospital may keep you for 2-3 days additional in the hospital. At time your discharge is delayed. So getting discharge is a very, very painful process in India, right? I mean, it's a 2-3 hour long journey. And I think these are the various factors where the patient experience is quite broken, right? And we felt that, especially in an elective surgery which are non-critical, it should be very smooth process for you, right? So that's why we introduced the concept of a medical concierge. So in our case, whenever a patient comes to us, first of all, there is a Glamyo Health coordinator or Glamyo Health buddy who is associated with you, and the role of this health buddy is to make sure that he gets the right advice. The coordinator can answer all the questions for you. Whether it is 6 in the morning or 10 in the night, he is available to answer all the questions for you. He'll find the right doctor, right hospital for you. So in every micro market, we have the specialists who work with us, and they will identify that for this particular symptom or this particular disease, why don't you look at this particular surgeon and talk to this surgeon and plan your surgery with him. Once the patient is convinced, on the day of the surgery, we send our own cab which picks up the patient. Right? We have our tie-ups with the hospital says that there is no waiting time at the time of admission. You don't need to pay any deposit, and you just straight away get the admission done. At the time of discharge, our own in-house insurance team does all the paperwork for you. So your attendant is not expected to run behind the TPA desk or the billing desk or the doctor to get the discharge done. It is our responsibility to get everything done, and we tell the patient that why don't you wait, the attendant to wait in the room, and we arrange the return cab and everything. And more importantly, we provide a fixed price package. So the price of the surgery is known to the patient even before he's entered the OT, and there is no shock. There is no pricing shock in the end. We ensure that the price remains what has been quoted to the patient. So I think that's where how the model works. right? I think the common perception is that it is mostly connecting the patient to the hospital and doctor. But in our case, we are using hospital and doctors as service providers in the patient journey, right? Although we control the quality of the hospital, the quality of the doctor to a great extent, it is very important that we work with the right set of hospital and right set of doctors. But the entire patient journey is controlled by us, right? The second part is about that is it reflects in high take rates. If I were somebody to pass on a lead to the hospitals will only pass on 10 to 12% of the overall surgery value to me. But if I tell the hospital that I will use your only the infrastructure, the OT, the room, the anesthetist, I will bring my own surgeon who is already a very qualified surgeon. He's 10 years of experience, ex Fortis, Medanta, Apollo, and we will have our own set of protocols through which we'll do the surgeries, and we will control the entire patient experience, right? So in that case, the hospital charges me only 40%, and I keep 60% of the surgery value as my take rate. So I think that's the fundamental, the way the model works, right? And that's the reason which I said in the beginning. This allows me to make money on every single surgery. It allows me to create a very sustainable unit economics, right? And actually, in the long run, or even in the short run, we have a chance of becoming a profitable company.
Very interesting, Archit, and just a couple of questions to clarify for people listening in. Let's say you go to a hospital, and I know you work across many cities, but just as an example, Delhi, right? And you tell a hospital that you want a OT. Do you have to pre-book for months in advance and say I will take X number of hours? It's like a minimum guarantee that you have to give to the hospital, and hence you have a, in some ways, a long-term commitment? Or is this done completely on demand whenever you have a user request? How does that work?
Right. So as of today, the model is largely pay as you go or on demand. So we don't have any minimum guarantees for hospitals, and largely for doctors. So 95% of our doctors are also on a pay as you go on demand basis, right?
Understood.
Uh, and for hospitals, all of them, 100% of them are pay as you go. The reason we've been able to do scale uh, on that is because in India, actually, unfortunately, the challenge is that there are 44,000 hospitals in the private domain, right? And if you look at the demand that is actually concentrated, is largely towards the larger Apollo, Max, and Fortises, because they are already a brand and people know about them, or to government institutions, right? So there are a lot of government institutions because they are charitable or they provide free of cost. So many times, there's a huge demand and queuing outside these hospitals. But when it comes to the private hospitals, and if you were to just move one level below the Apollo, Max, and Fortis, right? So we work with a lot of four-star hospitals, which are one level below Apollo, Max, and Fortis, 25 to 30 bedded on an average, and they have good quality infrastructure. But the problem is that because of some micro market play, right, they are not able to attract or utilize their capacity more than 45 to 50%, right? So that is the kind of hospitals that we are working with, right? And that is where whenever we want, right? So today, whenever we have wanted an OT, so requirement for a OT or the availability of OT has never been a challenge, right? And there are hospitals where we do more than one or two cases. We do like 4 to 5 surgeries in a day. Also, there are certain hospitals like that where, like, because I think in our case, generally Saturdays and Sundays are larger days because people want to get some rest and then plan their work from, let's say, Monday. So Saturdays and Friday, or rather Fridays and Saturdays, are much larger for us. So in Saturdays, there are certain hospitals we do more than like 4 or 5 surgeries also. So that's why I think planning the OT has never been a challenge for us. Then secondly, since these are planned surgeries, right? There is no emergency. So if you need to move the OT time from 12 in the afternoon to 3 in the 3 or 4 in the evening, those options are also possible for you, right? And I think so I think supply of OTs and beds, I think, is not a challenge, for us.
Got it. And the second part of that clarification is from a user's perspective, or someone who's looking for that surgery, they come to your platform and get advised on which is the right hospital and doctor to take that surgery from, and then get a full package customized by Glamyo. They do the billing and then go and actually get the surgery done. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, I think fairly summarizes it.
Okay.
Just I think minor one difference over there is, so we have two types of surgeries that happen, right? So one is happening through out of pocket, where patients are paying on their own, and there is one which is happening out of insurance, right? In out of pocket, I think largely is the line is like that, where patient comes to us, we advise them, we counsel them, and then we help them in selecting the right hospital and right doctor, and then we plan their package, and they pay us before the surgery happens, right? And out of that, in that, so today around 60% of volume is out of pocket, right? And in that 60%, around 20% is out of EMIs, where patient actually need help in financing, and we have like 5 6 different partners wherein we help them in financing, and we also bear the subvention cost, right? So we have built in the subvention cost in the package, so patient does not need to pay anything out of their pocket, right? And in a single window they get the clearance. So today, if a patient were to take an EMI, he has to go to a platform, plan it, upload documents. In our case, we say that you just give us everything to us, and we'll take care of everything for you.
Got
So,
it.
so in 60% of the cases, we collect the entire amount, and the rest of the process, the OT starts, admission, surgery happens. We arrange the cab, patient reaches, admission happens, surgery and discharge happens. In 40% of the cases which are out of insurance, actually hospitals have all the approvals in their name, so they are the ones who will collect the money from the insurance, and then we settle the at the end of the month. We do a settlement with the hospital, right? But in bulk of the cases, we end up collecting the money upfront.
Understood. Maybe just to summarize, and B, even when we first got introduced to Glamyo, I think two things stood out. Number one, everyone on this call, including myself, have gone through the challenge of running around hospitals, right?
Correct.
In one of the other situations, especially when it comes to getting a patient in and getting and doing the billing for it. I think the
Correct.
thought of having that managed by a concierge service sounds almost too good to be true, but it's great that that can be provided. Number two, it continues to shock me, and now we've seen this across industries, that in a country like India, where there is always more people demanding a service, because of inefficiencies of discovery, there is still underutilization of assets, right? Even
Correct.
hospitals, which you would assume would always be full, continue to be underutilized. And it's incredible for you to have that insight, to be able to marry customer experience with increasing utilization of assets, and to select it for elective, right? Because you cannot probably do these things for non-elective surgeries.
Correct.
You do not have the degree
Correct.
of flexibility. You cannot schedule them in that way. There are many complications, right? It's never in
Correct.
advance. So I think that's very interesting as a business model that has been constructed. um, Archit, before we go to the next section, if you and you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but if you could talk a little bit about where you have reached as a business in terms of scale, number of hospitals, cities, number of patients served, some of the key elective surgeries that you typically see patients going for, and then we can also talk a little bit about the financials of the company.
Sure. So today, I mean, I think in the last 2 years, we've already scaled to 25 plus cities, and rather we are launching the process of launching a few more cities. By the end of the year, the target is to be at least 45 cities, right? So by the end of the financial year or the next 12 months, target is to be in 45 cities of India. Good thing is what we have realized is what we have solved in Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore. The same can go to top 40 cities of India. And by top 40 cities, I mean that good, decent quality of infrastructure is available, and decent quality of medical resources are available to this kind of a model, basically, right? So that is, I think we have already chalked out those cities where we can go into. I think exactly 12 months back, we were doing 100 surgeries a month, and today in 12 months, we are doing close to 1,200 surgeries a month, right? So there is almost 24% month-on-month growth, and we have already counseled almost 3 lakh plus patients. 20,000 doctor consultations have happened, and 10,000 plus patients have successfully got treated from Glamyo, right? Uh, Now the target in the next 12 months is to grow this number also almost 8x, right? So this 1,200 idea is to take it close to 8,000 plus surgeries, or more than 8,000 plus surgeries in a month, right? And that's where I think the plan is to expand, go from 25 cities to 45 cities of India, right? And today we have almost close to 500 hospitals, 300 plus surgeons. Or my sense is that even if we grow 8x from here, my hospital supply and doctor supply will not increase 8x, right? I think we will at best increase it 2.5x, because within the same hospitals and same doctors, I know that enough space for me to do more surgeries. So that's also a good thing about this model, that from a supply perspective, it tends to be a little concentrated. You don't need to work with thousands of doctors and thousands of hospitals. You can work with limited set of hospitals and doctors, and you can scale the model. Because so one is that because of the price point, right? Because one single surgery itself is 50,000 rupees, right? And on this 50,000, your take rate is 60%, so you make almost 30,000 rupees per surgery as your revenue. And that's why it allows you to work on working at scale also with limited set of hospitals, limited set of doctors, where you can control the quality, right? And since we both came from a healthcare investing background, we were very sure that controlling the quality and the clinical outcomes, that is the foremost and the most important thing. And that's where only you can create a meaningful difference from the market and create a sustainable brand. So I think that's how, I think, in terms of numbers where we have reached so far and what the plan going forward. In terms of our revenues, we are at an ARR of close to $9 million now. And idea is that in the next 12 months, we'll take it to easily $80 million of ARR. That's the target for us in the next 12 months.
Understood. And just for everyone, ARR is an annualized revenue run rate. So based on the last month, last quarter, how are you analyzing it?
So last month was 5 crores a month. This month will be 6 crores a month. So based on that analyzation, it is $9 million.
Perfect. So, and if you can talk a little bit about, you've talked a little bit about gross margins, right? Being 60% per surgery, or maybe that's an broad average. But if you could talk a little bit also about EBITDA, you define two EBITDAs, right? Business EBITDA and corporate EBITDA. And we have seen marketing spend increase quite significantly, right, as you're growing the business. If you could just throw some perspective there, and how that leads to profitability.
Sure. So, so that's a good question. So basically, when we started the business, right, I think the primary channel that we have been spending on has been online. And in the last 2 years, bulk of the scale up has happened through spending on online channels, which has been Google and Facebook, right? And interestingly, to our surprise, today a lot of population are actually searching online.
Archit, I lost you. I'm not sure if it's audible.
Can you still hear me?
Now I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. Okay. In case it happens again, just let me know. I'll switch off the video.
Sure.
So today, so as I was saying, right, online demand so far has scaled up largely through online channels. And in online, what we've realized is that the market in online segment alone has become quite large, which is people are searching for best doctor for piles near me, best hospital for hernia surgeries near me, cost of a cosmetic surgery, or cost of whether a particular surgery is covered under insurance or not, right? And what are the recovery rate for the symptoms? So whenever people are searching these kind of things, our ads are showing on Google and Facebook, and that's where I think bulk of our spends have been going, right? Whether it is Google on lead gen or Facebook for branding perspective. Now, I think so. Now, I think as a company, I think the way we look at it in the next 12 to 18 months, I think how we see the scale up happening. So I think online will continue to grow for us as a channel of acquisition. But today, almost 20% of our revenues are coming from offline and organic channels. So almost 10% of the patients are coming from referrals from existing patients. So existing patients who are referring somebody in the family or the friend circle to come and get surgery done from us. Another 10% is coming through offline channels, where we have tied up with various insurance companies, insurance aggregators, and corporates, where they have provided an insurance to their employees or to their clients. But when it comes to hospitalization, they want a better experience for their employees. So there also, I think a good demand is coming. And lastly, I think one more initiative we've launched is our Glamyo Health membership. So today we have almost 14,000 members who, after the surgery, are also coming back to our platform, whether to get free OPDs for their family, whether to get a diagnostic test done, right? And we are also tying up with a few insurance companies where we can help increase the insurance penetration in the market, right? So these are the couple of offline channels through which we feel that there is a repeat also that we can generate in this segment, right? So generally in our segment, uh, if somebody has gone under a knife, chances of them going under a knife again is remote in the next, at least in the next 2 to 3 years. But how we can generate a repeat is that once you get something done from us, you become part of Glamyo Health membership and you get free OPDs, almost this discounted rate on diagnostics. You also get a free test done from us for you and your family, right? And we also upsell insurance to you and your family. So that is one way we plan to now scale a membership where we have a database of customers who are repeating or repeat or continuous transacting users on our platform, and also tying up with offline channels, like whether it is insurance aggregators, whether it is corporates, and also tying up with GPs, right, where they can refer surgeries to us. And organic will continue to grow. Today it is 10%, but now I think in certain cities the brand is already known, right? So over time, I think this because of the brand alone, people will start coming to us. So I think that is the plan over the next 12 to 18 months, how we plan to reduce the dependence upon online marketing, which is, I think, the major spend as of today, right? And start getting a good source, good chunk of revenues from offline and organic channels.
I think and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the good thing, because you're a full stack, is that people refer Glamyo and not the specific doctor or the hospital in which they got the service, right?
Correct.
Otherwise, you would not, the referral would go to the doctor itself, and
Correct.
you would lose out on that business. Is that a fair understanding?
Correct. Correct. Absolutely.
Got it. Understood. Okay. I'm going to ask you two more questions, Archit, and then we'll move to the Q&A that we have on the chat box. Number one, competition, right? Once again, we've put up something on our website for users to understand, but I think there are a few companies who are maybe providing similar or related services. Could you talk about how you think about competition? What maybe differentiate you? Is it something that the market is large enough, and hence today is not something that there'll be multiple players who survive? That's number one. And second is, if you could talk a little bit about the ongoing round that you're doing and how you're partnering with Grip to offer equity in Cameo.
Okay. So let's tackle the first part, which is the competition. So in terms of competition, and let's look at online and offline both. So in the offline world, as I told you, right, there are 44,000 hospitals in India, and the largest guy, Apollo, has 76 hospitals, and the next largest guy, let's say Fortis, has 25 hospitals. Both Fortis and Max have 25 hospitals. So thereby, we realize that in the offline world, actually the market is quite fragmented, right? And for the larger players, beyond a point, they can capture 2 or 3% or 5% of the market. But beyond a point, I think rest of the population they're not able to capture because of the asset concentration of the assets, right? In the online space, and there is a 95% of the market which is actually using one of the hospitals to get the surgery done, but over there the patient experience continues to be broken, or the billing tends to be higher than what they would expect, right? In the online, so that is the 95% of the market which players like us are consolidating or taking share from, right? So we are really competing with that or going after that particular market, which is the unorganized market. Now, in that unorganized market, the market is very nascent, but there are two types of players: full stack and lead gen. In the full stack, there are actually only two players: Pristine Care and us. Pristine Care is already a billion-dollar company backed by Sequoia. Pristine Care now does close to 5,000 surgeries a month, and we do around 1,200 surgeries a month, right? So we have, in the last 12 months, we have done a lot of catch up with them, and our sense is that we'll continue to increase that catch up with them. Uh, and the reason largely has been that when Pristine came, I think they spent a lot of money in educating the market, the hospitals, the doctors, the patients, But I think today, for us, to reach a $9 million ARR, we have used only $4.5 million of capital, right? So I think in that sense, we've been fairly capital efficient. And because of our 60% take rate, we've been managed to do that, right? So that's the beauty of the full stack model, which Christine and us are doing, that the take rates are high, and with limited capital, you can actually scale the business, right? Now, in terms of the lead gen guys, right? So there are quite a few lead gen guys. Practo is there, Medfin is another one, and there are a bunch of more players. Over there, the take rates are in the range of 10 to 15%, right? And our assessment was that in a surgical model where the patient is coming mostly once in 2-3 years to you, it is always practical or pragmatic that if you can recover all your costs in that one surgery itself. If you can do that, then only you can create a sustainable business, right? You can't expect to spend money on acquiring a customer and assume that you will use that customer over next 5 years multiple times, right? And that's how you'll recover the money. So that's, I think, where I think we are significantly better than the lead gen guys and more sustainable, right? And we feel that after the next round, right? So we are doing a pre-series B, and after we do our series B, I think we can actually become a profitable company. So we don't need to keep on going to market again and again to raise capital after that. So that's how we believe fundamentally.
Understood. Before you answer the second part of the question, just a couple of related questions on margin, right? I'll just quickly cover from users. You talked about 60% gross margin and 40% is what you pay to the hospital. But could you talk a little bit about the unit economics post that, and what is the current corporate EBITDA and business EBITDA? What's the difference between the two?
Sure. So around, as I said, right? So 60% is our take rate. And after, if I include doctors also here, so our gross margin actually on every surgery is 48%, right? So 48% is the gross margin on every surgery. And then after doctors and hospitals, and the next cost is for us is the Glamyo health coordinators or the medical coordinators. And then, certain other costs like some minor consumables we use in the surgery, etc. Care buddies are people on the ground who help them. So I think another 7 to 8% is what we spend there, right? So 40% is the contribution margin after that. So after the contribution, so after 48% gross margin, we have cost of the care coordinators, etc., right? Which is and consumables, which is around 7 to 8%. So we are left with a 40% contribution margin. After that, the major cost, which is the online marketing cost, is around 20% for us, right? So on a city level, in most of the mature cities, we make around 18 to 20% of business EBITDA, right? Which we have spoken in our this thing, right? Right. So that is the EBITDA we make after marketing in most of the mature cities, right? After marketing, we also spend on the branding side, right? To create brand awareness on the company, and then we have a corporate cost. Corporate cost is largely the people sitting in the corporate, whether it is the tech team or the finance team and the HR team, digital marketing team. So these are the corporate teams. But I think these corporate teams we have largely built up, so we don't see a huge scale up in the corporate expense that we have as of now, right? And on the brand marketing side also, we don't see a huge scale up now because I think the funds that we are raising, most of the scale up of demand will now happen through offline and organic channels, right? Online will continue to grow, but as a percentage they will not grow, right? So that's why it will help us move towards profitability in the future.
Understood. Okay, perfect. Thanks for clearing that up. Maybe we can just get to the last question, and then there are some smaller questions that I'll pick up. If you talk about the current ongoing fundraise, the round that you're raising prior to Series B, and happy for you to also add how you're partnering with Grip on making that accessible to our users.
Sure. So I think we are closing around roughly around $7 million in the current round, right? So 50 crores is the overall raise that we are looking at. in this round. And we already have and this is a pre-series B round, so it's a convertible round. So the discount to the next round whenever we raise. There is a minimum discount of 18% to incoming guys for first 6 months, and after that there is additional 2% discount every month, which goes up to 24%. Right. So maximum discount you can get is 24%. Right. And we already have some lead investors who have decided the terms and led the round. So 4.0 VC is a $70 million fund. Agility Ventures is again a large fund, right, who have led the round for us. And then we have seen participation from certain other funds like funds and syndicates like V Founder Circle. We are also seeing some venture debt coming in from Black Soil and N+1, right? So that these are the all the amounts that are committed as of now, right?
And maybe just to add, as usual, we execute this instrument through a SEBI registered Cat 1 fund. We partner with two AIFs to enable this. So as an investor, you are participating through a SEBI regulated Cat 1 AIF fund. All the details in terms of the KYC requirements, minimum ticket size are mentioned on our platform. And this money will then go to purchase equity through this instrument, convertible instrument in the company, which, as Archit mentioned, will convert at an 18 to 24% discount in the next round. For more questions, you can definitely reach out to your relationship manager or email us with respect to this construct. Actually, I'm going to get to some questions. There are a couple of common ones around liability, right? So if something was to go wrong, now you said that elective procedures, typically things don't go wrong, but in case there is a complication, right? There is a medical, something goes wrong with the patient during one of those cases, how is Glamyo liable? And if it results in additional unplanned costs or extended hospital stay, then does Glamyo bear the financial responsibility of that?
Sure. So that's I think an important question, and I think very valid one. So, and let's break it into two parts. First, on the liability part, right? So when it comes to liability, right? So there are two types of liabilities that we have to face, right? So one is potentially legal risk, legal liability, somebody going to court, and second is the brand risk. Now let's look at the legal part. So on legal part, I think we generally do an agreement with all our hospital partners and doctor partners, surgical partners, surgeon partners, around what are the roles and responsibilities of each party under the agreement, and what is the liability, right? In case of hospitals, we generally tie up with them and say that the medical infrastructure is coming from you, and is there any negligence or fault at the medical infra part, whether it is the OT or the nursing staff, if anything goes wrong there, it is your liability, and you will indemnify Glamyo regarding any claims that may come. Same goes for surgeons, right? We the surgeons agreement say that you are the one who are providing the medical expertise, and in case of any medical negligence or clinical negligence, you are liable to indemnify Glamyo Health. And actually, all these surgeons are also required to furnish a 1 crore indemnity bond. So that 1 crore indemnity bond is actually a requirement as per most hospitals. So most hospitals require these surgeons to have an indemnity bond before they start practicing. And in Glamyo also, we follow the same protocol that to start working with us, you need to furnish that indemnity bond to us. So on paper, to a great extent, we are 2 steps removed from the liability, right? Because at the end of the day, the patient is getting operated in a XYZ hospital's operation theater, and it is done by an XYZ surgeon, right? So if there is any medical negligence, unfortunate case of a negligence or something going wrong, the first set of liability do come at the hospitals and the doctors, right? And in the eyes of the law, probably we are 2 steps away from that particular liability, right? On the brand front, I think that you cannot make that zero, because I think it's the Glamyo which is at the front. Glamyo is playing a major role in communicating to the patient, getting the doctors in the hospital together, and arranging all the services for the patient, right? So you're right. If something goes wrong, there is definitely a brand risk at Glamyo. So we cannot make it zero, because we realize in a healthcare business, whether you are a Max or a Fortis or a Apollo or a Mayo Clinic, some kind of a brand risk will always remain. But I think there are steps we took to mitigate that risk, and how we mitigated that risk. And we said that, coming from healthcare background, we said that let's build certain biases in the system or certain protocols wherein that risk can be reduced as low as possible, right? The brand part, the legal risk we have covered to a great extent through documentation, but on the brand side also, let's reduce it. So we said, let's work with only certain quality of hospitals, which is 4-star as per our 1 to 5. 5-star are Apollo, Max, and Fortis. 4-star are the hospital we work with. NABH accredited, 25 to 30 beds. All the infrastructure, all the documentation is in place. Our team does a audit check and everything, and we take a lot of social profiling and media profiling on them, that what the clinical protocols are, or what the historical rates of their patients are, historical outcomes of the patient. Same goes for doctors. Doctors, again, we said on a scale of 1 to 10, number 10 are the star doctors. But if you look at one level below them, let's say 8 and 9, which are 10 years of experience post MS, have worked in a Max, Fortis, and Apollo. So they have already worked in a high clinical environment, right? So let's work only with those surgeons, not with everyone. So we will not choose any surgeon who is less than 10 years of experience post specialization, right? So that also brings in a lot of filtering on the clinical expertise, right? And you can control the clinical outcomes for the patient. Thirdly, we said that we will have a very strong patient feedback mechanism. After every surgery, after every OPD and IPD, a call goes to the patient on day 3rd, day 5th, and day 30th to understand one thing on the quality of the hospital, quality of the doctor, quality of the medical coordinator, the patient coordinator, and how the overall experience with Glamyo was. Are they facing any infection symptoms, any problems, right? And have they fully recovered or not, right? So by this mechanism, I think in case any patient is facing any problem, so one is that feedback comes to us in real time, right? And we can able to solve that in real time. Although in 99.9% of the cases, we have seen that it is largely, so whatever the cases that get flagged to us, 99.9% cases, what happens is the patient has some pain, discomfort, or he wants one follow-up or 1 or 2 more follow-ups with the patient surgeon. All right. And in those cases, we have seen it being very easily or successfully resolved all these issues. Right. And that's why, out of 10,000 surgeries, we have fortunately never seen even a single case of mortality or a life-threatening event has happened to any of the patients. Right. All these 10,000 are non-eventful, and patients have successfully gone home and recovered. So I think that's how I see that liability part over here. On paper, we have greatly reduced it. At the brand level, at the Glamyo Health level, we have taken a lot of steps to make sure that it is as low as possible, that particular risk.
Got it. Thank you for giving a detailed answer on that. I think it's an important question.
Correct.
The next one is, a lot of the surgeons that you probably work with also have their own clinics, right? Most surgeons have, or most doctors have their own clinics. Do you typically use separate infrastructure, or if they have their own clinics, use the same infrastructure for doing the service?
So in our case, there are 2 types of procedures which happen, right? So some are invasive, wherein you need a general anesthesia, and typically those kind of facilities are only available in hospitals, right? And in that case, the surgeon usually goes to one of the hospitals which we have empaneled and does surgery there. But there are definitely certain procedures which are non-invasive in nature and can be done under local anesthesia, which is, let's say, sometimes cosmetic surgeries like mole removals, lipoma removals, or laser hair removals, right? Then there are certain dental procedures which does not necessarily need hospitalization. In those cases, we do absolutely use existing surgeons clinic network or clinic infrastructure, and that also allows us in a great way to reduce our costs, right? Because our take rates are slightly better in a clinic setting because the clinic surgeon who owns the infrastructure, and also the patient experience is much better because in a hospital setting, at the end of the day, some amount of paperwork and all is involved. But in case of clinic, I think the patient experience is even better, right? Because it's totally in and out, right? Door to door kind of experience that you get. So we do work with clinical infrastructure also.
Got it. Okay. 2 very interesting questions I'm going to pose to you. One is there a requirement for the degree of human interaction that Glamyo today offers? Your concierge, your buddies. Do you believe that something that is very important to the user, because you're already providing a valuable service, right? That whole process of discovery, booking, finance, etc. is very valuable. Is this something that you require? And if you do require it, how do you ensure consistency and scalability?
Yeah, so very valid question again. I mean, uh, so I think in when it comes to healthcare services, especially people going under the knife, right? So I think some level of human interaction is very important, and I think at the end of the day, even if you are in the hospital, how people have spoken to you, how they have treated you, how the staff has treated to you, that at times is more important than the surgery itself. Surgeries are half an hour, 1 hour procedure. You go into the OT, you come out. But how the nursing staff is handled, and more importantly, have somebody been able to there for you whenever you. So I think that level I think will always remain, especially in a surgical scenario. So it will always be an assisted journey. It will never be a totally do it on your own. And beyond a point, it will always be a tech-enabled journey. It will not be a totally tech-led, tech-driven journey, right? So I think that will continue to remain. How do we do it on scale? I think that is an important question, right? I mean, I think we've realized that human intervention is very important for people to build trust, and how you handle the patients. That's how people build that connect with Glamyo at the end of the day. To do it on scale, I think one important thing that is working for us is, right. I mean, I think because of technology, today sitting in our office in CP, all our coordination, medical coordinators and everyone sits in Connaught Place, right? I mean, so we have an office in Delhi where all the people are sitting. So we are able to, using technology, schedule doctors' appointment, schedule surgeries all over India, just sitting in a single location in Delhi. So that's where I think somewhere. And today, if I book a cab, if I book a OPD or a surgery, immediately using our doctor's app, the doctor see the details. The patient can go to the doctors at the scheduled location. The doctors upload their prescriptions in online through our app. All the patient journey patient can track on our app, right? And the hospitals can view which all IPDs are coming their way, using our app. So I think that's where I think technology plays a role, wherein sitting in a single location in India, you are actually able to service people across 25 cities of India. And at scale also, I think that is possible, because when it comes to our medical counselors, we have planned a training module for all our coordinators, right? Everyone who joins the floor, he spends at least 3 weeks going for a rigorous training where he understands various medical treatments, medical terminology, concierge, how to handle the patient, what are the various insurance mechanisms. He understands how to utilize our CRM and the tech tools that we have. The very detailed training happens, and it's a regular exercise. After Even after joining the floor, on a regular basis, every month there is a repeat training or a refresher course that keeps on happening, right? So I think those are some of the protocols we have built, to allow consistency and quality at scale. And I think so far it seems to be working well for us. Our ratings on Google are 4.5 on a scale of 5. Patient NPS is upwards of 75. So far I think it's good.
I'm also assuming that as you have more number of surgeries per day in a single hospital, it's scalable, right? Because you will need the same one person, one body to service
Correct.
a large number of customers.
Correct.
And I think that will also help you have economies of scale.
Correct.
Um, the other question that I thought was very relevant was, you mentioned 3 lakh, and whoever's question it is, I think the a lot of attention to this call. They You have 3 lakh patient inquiries against which 10,000 surgeries have been done, right? So it's a 3% conversion funnel.
Correct.
Do you think that that's typical? Do you think that that's the kind of lead cycle that happens? And is there a more aspirational target that you have?
So I think that is possibly in a surgical scenario, right? I mean, I think that is possibly a right number. I'll tell you why, right? I mean, today when we advertise on Google and Facebook, right, you get inquiries of all kinds, right? So patient has some kind of a discomfort and he can reach out to you today, and we don't necessarily say that only if you have surgery then only contact us. The patient reaches out to us, our counselors will answer the call, and they'll try to resolve all the queries from the patient side. Now there can be multiple scenarios, right, wherein there are in that funnel there is another 10 to 15% of the funnel which is have uh, strong symptoms of a surgery, and they may need a surgical intervention over the next 3 to 4 weeks, right? So that is one funnel. But there is a large funnel which is a follow-up funnel, wherein there are early symptoms, and those symptoms either may aggravate towards the surgery or they may go away over time. So so I think we feel that in the long run, I think uh, in the online world, that those are the conversion rates. But when we move to offline channels, right, when we go directly to a GP or we go work closely with certain insurance aggregators and certain corporates, I think over there, I think the requirements will purely come where patient need hospitalization directly. So in online world, I think this 3% may increase to, we feel that over time our efficiencies will increase, and if we start spend more on our branding and communication, this 3% may increase to 5%, right? But in the organic and the offline world, I think this can go to as high as 10%, right? Of the or 10 to 15% of the inquiries can get into become surgeries, basically. So
I
that's
think
how I think I.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And we see the same thing even in our business, right? The number of people who will inquire because it's something different, it's something that they want to explore, but it's still elective. And hence they will want to understand things before getting into it. Though I
Correct.
know also that you're working on an AI tool which allows you to predict which people are more prone to surgery or more likely to choose an elective surgery. And then as a business, business economics, focus on them in terms of converting them to potential customers.
Correct. Correct.
Future plans, and we didn't cover this actually, but in with respect, while you have an expansion of city, there are two questions on future plan. One is, will you ever think about non-elective surgery, because the same patient will want a non-elective surgery at some point of time? And second is, given India's importance in medical tourism, are you also servicing foreigners? Are you targeting foreigners from countries like Bangladesh, Myanmar, who may want to come to India for elective surgery?
Yeah, so on the critical part, you're right that when we scale, the demand or inquiries for critical care will come to us, or the percentage demand may increase, right? And especially in corporates and insurance aggregators, there is bound to be demands which are more critical in nature, right? Uh, so over there, we continue to feel that in a shared infrastructure, in the kind of protocols that we have, or the kind of the patient journey that we have, we may not be able to control that outcome entirely on our own, but there is always a scope for us to pass it on to a large hospital as a lead gen or a referral, right, wherein they generally would pass on 10 to 20, 15 to 20% of that surgery value to us. And obviously the ATS or the charges are also there high, but we would only be comfortable doing it more as a referral business, and that can itself be a lucrative business. But yeah, I think that from a patient experience perspective, we will never go full stack in that space, because we feel the variables are too many there, and I think it is best that hospital does the entire delivery and the patient experience in those
Fair
cases.
enough. No, that makes a lot of sense. I'll take one question that has been directed more towards this fundraise,
Yeah.
and our very standard warning. This is in investing in equity at a company which is in its early stage. Glamyo is now a little bit more than 2 years old. Requires you to understand that this is a fairly long-term investment. Please do not think of this as being giving you fixed returns on a monthly or quarterly basis, or that you can predict when an exit may happen. You should think of this as being 4+ years as investment. Things can be different, and you can get an earlier exit, but that's the horizon you should look at. Please also understand that these are high risk investments, and there is a potential of losing capital in making such equity investments, which is why we try to offer the same at a lower ticket size, so you can build a more diversified portfolio. I think as a founder, and Archit will say the same thing, it's very difficult to predict what that exit could be or what that timeline for exit could be. What you have to understand is and bet on is that there's a business to be built, and you're betting behind the team that is building it. Archit, that's all for today. You've been incredibly generous with your time. You've been very, very forthcoming with the answers, very transparent and very detail oriented, which has helped us understand something which is not necessarily intuitive or that we experience on a daily basis. So thank you so much. We're very proud to be associated with Glamyo and working with you. We've seen a tremendous interest already for this equity investment on our platform, and we hope to make it available to more of our users. Uh, Once again, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Nikhil. It's a pleasure, and happy to share my journey with everyone. And I think I'll just say one thing on a closing note. When we started this, it was just a startup idea. Then we formed the vision to create one of the largest asset-light healthcare chains. But today it's a mission. The mission is to make a meaningful difference to almost 10 million patients' surgical journey or their healthcare journey. So I think that is really what now the company stands for. That is something we are all working towards.
Well, that's a fantastic way to close this session. If you have a mission, I'm sure you will succeed. But thank you to also to all of our users who joined us on a Saturday evening to listen to this session. Have a great weekend. See you.
Bye bye, everyone.